I have no intention of dealing with your parents. If you don't like it, we can get a divorce."
That's how my husband threatened me. Are you sure about that? I had reached my limit and decided to go through with the divorce he suggested. A few days later, my ex-husband came to me, crying and begging on his knees.
I was wrong. Please, forgive me.
My name is Sally, a 27-year-old office worker. I had been married to David for a year. We met back in college. I was a freshman then, excited about the new campus life. At a club recruitment event, David approached me. He was 2 years older than me and was in the tennis club. I wasn't very athletic, but he explained that he joined as a beginner and was having fun. And the club had a system where everyone practiced and played matches at their own level. My friend was also interested, so we both decided to join the tennis club. I was nervous until the actual practice started, but he remembered me and taught me kindly. The experienced players would practice with each other, and the club had a great atmosphere where no one was left out. The seniors were always eager to teach the beginners, and everyone was so nice, which made the drinking parties fun too. During my enjoyable college life, he confessed to me around the time he graduated.
I've always liked you. I'm going to be working soon, and we won't be able to see each other. I wanted to tell you my feelings before it's too late. Will you go out with me?
I had actually liked him too, but thought he saw me just as a junior and had given up on the idea. So, when he confessed, I was thrilled. Of course, I said yes, and we started dating. Since I was still a student and he was working, we mostly met on weekends. But we had a great time. He was mature, leading the way and taking me to various date spots. He often paid for our dates, saying I was still a student, which I thought was very manly. When I was job hunting, he gave me advice, which really helped me prepare. Later, I graduated and got a job.
Congratulations, Sally.
Thank you. It's all thanks to you, David.
No, it's because you worked hard.
Then he suggested,
Now that we're both working, how about we live together?
You mean move in together?
Yeah. I thought it was better for you to focus on studies while in school.
That might be a good idea. I was happy he suggested moving in together. We decided to inform our parents about it. Thank you for thinking to meet my parents.
It's fine. It would be shocking if your parents just popped in and found out we were living together. Plus, it doesn't leave a good impression if I don't meet them first.
Oh, David. I was glad he was so responsible, valuing our relationship and considering others. We went to my parents' house, and we told them about our intention to live together. However, my parents were against the idea. Why? What's the reason? I didn't understand at the time. For them, it was too soon.
You haven't even lived alone yet, and you're about to start working, which means you don't know the hardships of being an employee. Starting to live together without fully establishing independence isn't good. First, get used to the job. Then, experience living alone. Only after you can live by yourself should you consider living with a partner. That's the right order, in my opinion.
But both of us were shocked at their opposition. We were even looking at apartments together.
Can't you really make an exception? I'm sorry. It's not that we don't trust you. It's just our opinion as parents, a rule and mindset of our household. I don't plan to bend it. So, if you want to live together, please, wait a bit longer.
Mom and Dad, you're being too rigid. There are so many couples younger than me who are living together.
And what if you end up getting pregnant? It's dangerous to act without considering the risks, getting carried away by the fun parts. We want you to have a solid foundation to handle any situation. You might be angry with us now, but please, understand.
He wouldn't budge. So David and I had no choice but to give up on moving in together. I had to apologize and send him home. I apologized again via text, and he seemed pretty shocked. I was very upset with my parents. Why did they oppose it so much? I'm 22 years old. I can be independent. But my parents wouldn't listen to my words. They dismissed me like a child, throwing a tantrum. There's a big difference between saying you can be independent and actually being independent. Once you start working, you'll see things differently. You're still young. Don't rush. Take it step by step. I felt so rebellious against my parents, who wouldn't understand my feelings. But as soon as I started working, I began to see that my parents were right. I realized how tough it was to live as an adult. Just going to work every day and slowly learning a massive amount of work was mentally exhausting. I felt even living alone would be challenging in such a state. There's no way I could have managed cooking dinner or cleaning. If David and I had moved in together, we probably would have fought endlessly. That's when I understood what my parents meant. It was ridiculous for me, who wasn't even prepared to be independent, to suddenly think about moving in together. Being at home, supported by my parents while focusing on work, was what I needed most at the moment. I dedicated myself to my job, wanting to gain the confidence to live on my own and prove it to my parents. Slowly, I became accustomed to work and started to see what it meant to live as a working adult, a corporate employee. After working for over half a year and saving up enough money, I was ready for living alone. On weekends, I learned cooking from my mom and made lunch boxes on days I could. Seeing this, my parents must have felt I was ready. They finally agreed to me living alone. So I started living alone in an apartment near my company. I managed to cook every day, and even with some overtime, I could still focus on my work. Before I knew it, I was the top performer among my peers and got an early raise. This boosted my confidence. Unlike my student days, I naturally developed a more mature way of thinking, and I could feel the change of myself, even when I was with David. We continued dating smoothly, visiting each other's places while living separately. He would often ask,
"Isn't it about time we started living together?"
But I felt it wasn't time yet. I think I need to experience living alone a bit more. I want to make sure I can manage life on my own, even when work gets busier.
I see.
He replied, somewhat reluctantly, but eventually agreed. After living alone for 2 years, managing my work and household chores even during busy periods, and saving money responsibly, I felt confident that I could handle whatever came my way. So I told David that I was ready to move in together. He was happy and immediately suggested moving in. We visited my parents again to inform them, and this time they recognized my independence and appreciated that David had patiently waited. They easily gave their blessings for us to live together. Next, we talked with David's parents, who were kind and said,
"If that's what you both want, we have no objections."
With their approval, we finally got the green light to live together. We excitedly searched for an apartment and signed a lease for a place that fit all our criteria. Choosing the kitchenware, furniture, and appliances together was a lot of fun. My income had increased significantly, and I had much more peace of mind than when I first started working. I'm glad we decided to move in together at this time. And so we started living together, finally realizing our long-awaited dream. No more saying goodbye after dates. Without feeling that slight sadness anymore, living together was so enjoyable. We spent time waiting for each other at home, going out to cafes or driving on weekends. We spent such happy times together. But even then, I noticed some small things. Living together brought up small differences in values and perceptions, things he or I might want the other to stop or that bothered us a bit. When these moments came up, I always tried to point them out carefully and gently. If we had moved in together before becoming working adults, I probably wouldn't have been able to handle these situations as well, and the worst case scenario might have been a breakup. I truly felt it was the right time to start living together. About a year after we started cohabiting, he proposed to me.
"We've been together for about 7 years, and I want to be with you forever. That will never change. Will you marry me?"
I felt the same and immediately accepted. Yes, I will. That's how we decided to get married. Since we had already introduced each other to our parents during our cohabitation, both sets of parents readily accepted our decision to remarry. We smoothly arranged a meeting between our families and had our wedding. Everything from our engagement to the wedding seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. Many people attended and celebrated our union, making me incredibly happy. After the honeymoon, we returned to our apartment to start our married life. I thought we would continue our peaceful and happy days, but after getting married, something about my husband started to bother me. It was around Christmas when I first noticed it. My dad suggested that we come over for a Christmas dinner. What do you think? I asked him, but he visibly grimaced.
"Why do I have to go to your family's place? I want to go to my own home for Christmas."
"But you haven't been to my family's home since we got married." I went to my parents alone for Thanksgiving. After getting married, it's important to visit each other's families. When I rebuked him, he replied reluctantly.
"Honestly, I'm not fond of your parents."
Why?
"They're just too rigid. Remember when we first talked about moving in together? They were all uptight."
Uptight? My dad was just giving us good advice.
"They're old-fashioned and inflexible. That's why I'd rather not be involved with them."
What? I was shocked by his words. I had rebelled against my parents back then, but now I was grateful for their strictness. Maybe he found my parents difficult because his own were more permissive. I think it was a matter of compatibility. But there was no need for him to slander them like that. From then on, I started to distrust my husband. I had always thought he was kind and sincere, but maybe he had another side to him. I began to sense a certain duplicity in him. After that, he never came to my parents' house and didn't make any effort to meet them. He would get really upset if my parents wanted to visit and would go to his own family's home instead. I was shocked by his attitude and felt guilty that I couldn't tell my parents the truth about his feelings. Gradually, my affection for him faded. He would force me to attend his family gatherings but refused to meet mine. His selfish behavior, based solely on his likes and dislikes, disappointed me. Recently, he started to openly denigrate my parents, triggered by my earlier promotion than him.
Why the hell did someone born to parents like that become a manager before me? Is the company messed up? Or did your parents pull some strings? Like, please promote our child or something.
Of course they didn't do that. Why would you say something so awful? He was clearly berating me and my parents out of jealousy. I was so fed up with him. He seemed to be showing his true colors more and more. In the midst of this, my parents invited us to a family gathering, mentioning that my uncle, who had always been kind to me since I was little, would be there. He was a busy businessman and rarely attended these gatherings, so I rarely saw him. I wanted to go, especially because my uncle would be there. My parents had asked me to bring my husband to greet my uncle, so I tried talking to him about it. Hey, there's a family gathering at my parents' house in a couple of weeks. My uncle wants to meet you too.
Nope, pass.
What?
I told you I don't want anything to do with your parents. If you don't like it, let's divorce.
He threatened. I can't believe this. Why would you say that?
Because you don't listen.
Enough. I ended the conversation quickly and decided to go to the family gathering alone. I was happy to see my uncle after so long, but I had been not talking to David since our last fight, and the stress made it hard for me to smile. My uncle noticed and asked if something was wrong, and I ended up crying. This surprised not only him, but also the other relatives.
What's wrong, Sally? Are you okay?
My parents also sensed something was amiss and rushed over. I apologized and honestly shared about my troubled relationship with my husband and how he had been insulting me and my parents. The relatives were furious, and my uncle was angry too. Then, to my surprise, he suggested we go and talk to David right then. But
it's okay. I just want to have a proper talk.
He assured me, so I took him back to our house. David was lounging on the sofa.
Oh, you're back already? And who's this?
He asked, casually, scratching his belly.
You must be Sally's husband. I'm her uncle. Uncle? So you're her parents' sibling, huh?
My husband responded disdainfully.
Is that any way to speak?
My uncle said in a low voice, clearly annoyed by my husband's attitude. My husband didn't back down, though he seemed a bit taken aback.
Why should I care? She's my wife after all. What are you doing here anyway? Isn't it rude to just show up unannounced? So you were just relaxing at home while there was a family gathering at your wife's parents' house. That's a terrible thing for a husband to do. What's with you? You're just like her dad, always preaching. Weird old man.
He then sneered. I was furious at his mockery. Stop it! Don't insult my family like that.
Oh? It's their fault for being ridiculous. Remember what I said? If you don't follow my rules, we'll divorce. Since you clearly don't get it, here's something for you. He handed me filled out divorce papers.
Are you really okay with this? I was at my breaking point. I decided to go through with the divorce. You better not regret this.
Who would regret it? You have a lot to reconsider about yourself, my uncle said, visibly exasperated and no longer angry. I packed my things with my uncle and took them back to my parents' house. Then I submitted the divorce papers and finalized my divorce from David. He was truly the worst. Why hadn't I seen how petty he was? I apologized to my parents and uncle numerous times. Although they comforted me, saying it wasn't my fault. I felt responsible for marrying such a man. But it wasn't over yet. I knew a fact about him, which is why I decided to take action against him. A few days later, my ex-husband came to my parents' house crying and begging for forgiveness. I was wrong. Please, forgive me.
He said this because of what my uncle had done. The company my uncle managed was actually a major client of David's company. I only found this out when I told my uncle about my ex. My uncle had decided to assess David in person before making a decision about the contract. Finding him utterly despicable, he quickly decided to terminate the contract. Naturally, this caused significant problems for my husband's company. The president immediately asked my uncle why, and he honestly spoke about David's character, saying he didn't want to continue a contract with a company employing someone with such poor character. Consequently, the president fired David. In a panic, he came to me begging for forgiveness.
I was wrong. I should have valued not only you but your family too. Please, let's get back together.
What? Are you serious? You're just trying to save yourself. It's so obvious. I don't have a shred of love left for you. We're already divorced and we're strangers now. Leave before I call the police. I said coldly and closed the door in his pale face. I thought if he was still there in 5 minutes, I'd call the police, but he soon trudged away. After that, my ex-husband couldn't return to his company and struggled to find a new job. Apparently, he had been deemed incompetent at his previous company, and his reputation for causing problems made it impossible for him to find work. Now he's living in a miserable and lonely life in a cheap apartment, working part-time. All my college friends supported me, so he was ostracized by them too. Even his parents were dismayed and cut ties with him. Well, he's still young and can start over, but I hope this experience has made him realize how awful his behavior and attitude were. Meanwhile, I'm doing well in my job, finding work more and more enjoyable. My uncle, parents, and I had dinner together, enjoying our time as a happy family. Going forward, I plan to cherish my family while enriching my work and personal life.
My husband stole my credit card and went to Hawaii with his mistress. He told me to pay for it, but I canceled the card, trapping him in Hawaii.
Actually, I've decided to go on a trip to Hawaii starting now.
I received a call from my husband, who betrayed me and continued to extort money from me. I haven't heard anything about Hawaii. My husband responds to this with a smile on his face.
Well, you didn't say anything. Even I need to take a break once in a while, you know. So I decided to unwind in Hawaii.
Huh? What about the money?
I borrowed your credit card. I'll be living it up, so take care of the payments.
I hurriedly checked my wallet. Certainly, my credit card was missing. Hey, what do you mean taking my card without permission?
Don't be stingy. Your earnings are mine and what's mine is mine, right? So I have the right to use it too.
Who does he think he is? Some cartoon character? My husband spun arguments that make me want to say just that. When I firmly refused, he responded with a, "Well, if that's how it is," and the call from him ended. Finally, I began to take action. As a result, my foolish husband is about to experience hell. My name is Grace. I'm a 31-year-old housewife. To be honest, my family is well off. My father runs a company, and my mother is a full-time housewife, and I hold a managerial position at my father's company. To avoid the appearance of nepotism, I took all required exams and presented myself as an unrelated individual with the same surname as the president. Of course, I earned it through both caution and competence. In my early years, my father showered me with affection and generously funded my education. However, upon graduating from college, he pushed me to stand on my own. Initially, he even told me to apply to a different company. Still, as I admired my father's work, I pleaded with him to let me join his company. He reluctantly agreed, promising not to engage in favoritism. Given such circumstances, I moved out of my family home a long time ago and have been living on my own. Motivated via a desire to repay my father, I dedicated myself to work for several years. I found myself in my late 20s without a boyfriend. Whenever I returned home, my mother would express concern, saying, "Hey, Grace, it's great that you're working hard, but you should start thinking about your own happiness soon." I'm happy right now with my job. It's not about that. Haven't you thought about marriage? Should I help find someone for you? Mom, why are you so obsessed with marriage?
Your dad is quite old-fashioned. If he insists on someone taking over the company, I think it would be better if it were your future husband, not you. We would feel more at ease if you married a wonderful person.
While I was slightly shocked by my mother's words, I found myself agreeing. Certainly, my father had never explicitly said, take over the company. It was likely because he naturally assumed it would be a man who would inherit. My father had some old-fashioned beliefs, for sure. Afterward, I decided to find a marriage partner on my own. Despite my mother recommending several arranged meetings, I wanted to choose my life partner myself. I rushed into participating in speed dating events. Even after dating various people, none seemed to click with me. It was during those times that I encountered the man who would later become my husband, Greg Turner. Greg works as a salaried employee in a top-tier company in the same industry as my father. With a gentle smile, he was quite popular at matchmaking events. Greg invited me on a date, and for a year our relationship had no issues. He always paid for our dates and escorted me gracefully. When he proposed, I hesitantly shared the situation at home. Greg, my father is actually the president of a company called T Corp.
Huh? T Corp? Isn't that a famous company in our industry?
Yeah, and since I'm the only daughter, I was hoping you'd consider it. Greg took a moment to think before responding.
Got it. Let's hear what my mom thinks first.
Greg's father died when he was in middle school, and he was raised by his mother by herself. We headed to his family's house together and met his mother. Welcome. I've been looking forward to meeting you. His mother, a stylish and lively woman, greeted us. As expected, she was a career woman overseeing a fashion company. When we told her about our marriage plans and that we wanted him to inherit the company, she smiled and said, "That's fine. Our family isn't the kind that needs someone to inherit. If you two are happy, that's what matters the most." Thank you so much, Mom. And so the marriage introduction with his mother was concluded. By that time, I had grown to really like my mother-in-law. Your mom is such a wonderful person. She exudes this modern, career-oriented woman vibe, and I find it admirable.
Is that so? When she gets mad, she's terrifying. I can't stand up to her.
I couldn't help but laugh at Greg, who shrugged his shoulders. Afterward, it was time to visit my parents' house. When Greg informed them of our intentions, my father and mother were more delighted than I had imagined.
Grace, you've brought an amazing person. We bless your happiness. That's great, Grace. Greg, take care of our daughter, okay?
Greg stood tall and responded warmly to my parents in a refreshing manner. Later, we got married and started living together. My parents gave us a new apartment as a wedding gift. The house was registered under my name. Living in a beautiful city apartment, we thought we'd both work hard and collaborate on household chores. I believed in such an ideal newlywed life. However, that ideal was quickly shattered. Greg unexpectedly quit his job just 1 month after we got married. What do you mean? Quitting your job?
Come on, Grace. You're getting a decent salary, and eventually you'll inherit T Corp, right? I was thinking of being a house husband until then.
What are you talking about? I don't have any support from my parents. I can't rely on that.
With your salary, we'll be fine. Let me take it easy.
Despite repeatedly pleading with him to find a job, Greg didn't take it seriously. Instead, he started to resist, saying,
I came as their son-in-law, and this is how you treat me?
Having felt the need to compromise with such a husband, I asked him to at least take care of the household chores properly.
Leave it to me. Since I'm a house husband, I'll handle the housework.
Even though Greg said that, his household chores were incredibly sloppy. The rooms were messy, laundry was scattered around, and dinner consisted of supermarket ready-made dishes. In the end, I had to redo everything. One day, unable to endure it any longer, I said, Greg, you're not doing any of the housework properly. I want you to be a bit more responsible.
What? I'm doing my best. What's with that attitude?
But...
Seriously, that's what you call having some moral standards. Is it fun for you to blame a vulnerable house husband like me?
Faced with Greg's complaints, I could only sigh. I worked while giving Greg the living expenses, and he handled the household tasks carelessly. This lifestyle continued for a whole year. Around the 1-year mark of our marriage, Greg started asking me for money.
Hey, Grace, I'm running short on living expenses.
Huh? Already? I just gave you some not long ago.
Well, it's not enough. Can't help it, right?
Each time I reluctantly handed him a few more dollars. Greg even asked me to get a credit card for him, but I refused. With his spending habits, it was unpredictable. Greg, what on earth are you spending so much on? This is going to put us in the red. I was quite worried. During that time, I had to plan a company trip, so I went to a travel agency alone. I was having a meeting in a booth surrounded by walls when I overheard a conversation in the next booth. Hey, where are we going? The Bahamas?
Anywhere with you is fun. But isn't Hawaii better than the Bahamas?
I could hear snippets of the couple's conversation. The voice of that man was unmistakably familiar. It was the exact voice of my husband, Greg. I interrupted the meeting, peeked out from behind the wall, and confirmed it. There he was, Greg, with a smug smile, arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize, selecting brochures for their trip. At that moment, I understood everything. The reason he became cold towards me and frequently asked for money was because he was having an affair with that woman. I won't forgive him for making a fool out of me. While my head felt like it was boiling, I returned to the meeting booth. The scene I witnessed a moment ago kept swirling in my mind. After that, I took action and asked a private investigator to look into Greg. In just 1 week, substantial evidence of his affair had been gathered. It turned out he was meeting that woman almost every day while I was at work. The woman's name was Heather. Apparently, she worked at night. As I was grappling with the results of the investigation, my phone rang. The caller was Greg. Hello?
Oh, Grace. Working hard, huh?
Greg spoke arrogantly. So what? What do you want?
Hey, can you guess where I am right now?
An airport announcement could be heard in the background. The airport?
Ding dong! Actually, I've decided to go on a trip to Hawaii now.
Greg casually mentioned such a thing. In my mind, the image of the two choosing a travel brochure at the booth came back. I tried to stay as calm as possible. Hawaii? I never heard about that.
Well, you didn't say anything. As a full-time house husband, I need to relax sometimes, right? So I decided to stretch my wings in Hawaii.
Huh? What about the money?
I borrowed your credit card. We'll share the expenses, but you'll take care of the payment, okay?
I hurriedly checked my wallet. Indeed, my credit card was missing. Hey, what's the idea with taking my credit card without permission?
Don't be stingy. Your earnings are mine. And what's mine is mine, right? So, I have the right to use it.
Who does he think he is? Some cartoon character? My husband spun arguments that make me want to say just that. When I firmly refused, he responded with a,
"Well, if that's how it is,"
and the call from him ended. The phone call gave the impression that he was going alone, but there was no doubt he was with his affair partner, Heather. Attempting to use my card for their affair? What audacity. I wonder if they're having a good laugh right now. Even though he was my husband, I was utterly disgusted. I must teach him a lesson. I regained my composure and took action. Timing their arrival in Hawaii, I called the company, reported my credit card as stolen, and had it cancelled. After a while, Greg called me, but I ignored it. 5 days later, when I was at home, Greg returned in a tattered state. His hair was sticky, His face showed signs of fatigue, and he looked as if he hadn't taken a bath, perhaps sunburned. In such a state, Greg confronted me.
Hey, my credit card didn't work there. What's going on?
Huh? I canceled it.
You canceled it? Why the hell would you do that? I told you I was going to Hawaii, didn't I?
If the card is stolen, canceling it is only natural. Greg became furious at my nonchalant response.
Because of you, I couldn't even stay in a hotel and had to sleep rough in Hawaii. I hardly had any cash, so I survived on just 2 pieces of bread for 3 days. I thought I was going to die.
So how did you make it back?
All I had was a plane ticket. I got tangled up with the local punks and it was a real mess. How are you going to make up for this?
Oh, it sounds like you had a fun Hawaii trip. As I calmly remarked, Greg glared at me.
But seriously, you didn't have to go this far, did you? My life was really in danger. I feel like suing you.
It's me who should be suing.
Huh?
At that moment, I threw several photos on the floor. Those photos clearly showed evidence of Greg's affair. Intimate moments, entering a hotel, and even a snapshot of them holding a large travel bag at the airport. Seeing those pictures, Greg's face turned pale.
What is this? Did you know about it?
Yes, I've been asking the detective agency for a while now. You were planning to use my card for your affair, weren't you? Facing Greg, who turned pale and stuttered, I continued calmly. You'll compensate me for the affair and the money you embezzled, of course. And of course, we're getting a divorce.
Huh? Divorce? Are you kidding me? Divorce over something like this?
Just as Greg uttered those words, a woman's voice echoed in the room. You're the one kidding around. Upon confirming the source of the voice, Greg's legs gave out.
Mom, why are you here?
Yes, I had summoned his mother to this place. I explained his behavior and lifestyle, showed evidence of his affair, and had his mother waiting in the next room. His mother approached him with determination and delivered a powerful slap. Smack! A loud sound echoed in the room.
What the hell, Mom? What are you doing?
What about you? I didn't even know you quit your job. Not only did you become unemployed and rely on Grace, but you also stole her credit card for a cheating trip. What on earth were you thinking?
Well...
The only thing you can do is to sincerely apologize to Grace and accept her demands. Come on, sit down. Greg's mom grabbed his head and forced him to sit on the floor. He told me in a trembling voice as he shrank back from such a mother.
Grace, I'm really sorry. It's all my fault.
That's right. There's no denying that. At that moment, Greg lifted his head.
But please, don't just divorce me. I don't want to lose this life, my position as president of T Corp, or anything else. I'll be a good husband from now on, so please let this incident slide.
His mother, without a moment's hesitation, forcefully slapped Greg's head. Seeing him like that, I shouted loudly. Who's going to forgive you, you jerk? I'm definitely divorcing you. Pay the alimony quickly and disappear, you worthless man. The rest is up to hell to decide.
No way.
Greg cried out in tears and was dragged away by his mother by the scruff of his neck. Later on, the divorce between Greg and me somehow went through. He was ordered by his mother to pay alimony, and the amount he misappropriated totaling $60,000. I also demanded alimony from his cheating partner. She initially claimed she couldn't pay, but when I threatened to take legal action, she borrowed money and paid up. This apparently triggered a breakup between Greg and her. Having depleted his savings due to payments to me, Greg tried to return to his parents' house, but his mother refused. She had completely severed ties with Greg. Now homeless, he reportedly moved into a rundown apartment and is currently job hunting. Even upon hearing this, I feel no sympathy whatsoever. I can only think, serves you right. On the other hand, I am working hard while living alone. Recently, my father told me,
You are more capable than I thought. I hope you take over the company in the future."
Those words were more than joyful for me. Currently, I have revealed my identity within the company, and I'm undergoing training under my father as a successor. I would like to continue to make my life brighter by never ceasing my efforts.
My cheating husband blamed me for loneliness, told me to leave. I took my things and left, leaving him shocked in an empty house.
You don't understand anything. Do you still not know why I cheated?
When I confronted him about the affair, my husband pursed his lips, adopting an attitude that seemed to say it's not his fault, but yours. I confronted him assertively. What do you mean? Are you saying I'm the reason you cheated?
Yeah, that's right. I cheated because you made me feel lonely.
Huh? Are you serious?
Of course. I don't want to hear your excuses. Just get out.
At that moment, the feelings I had built up towards my husband melted away. There was no longer any affection, only a sense of disgust. What did he just say? Cheating because I made him feel lonely? This is ridiculous. I'll make sure to make him suffer, no matter what it takes. Determined to seek revenge, I immediately began preparations. My name is Karen Rivers, and I'm 32 years old. I work for a well-known beverage company. Working for a beverage company involves more than just planning new products. It requires adapting to the changing times, such as modifying labels and container shapes. Especially for beverages featured in commercials, one must come up with memorable catchphrases and label designs. These tasks are quite challenging, and it's common for good ideas not to come easily, even after days of contemplation. Since graduating from college, I have immersed myself in work every day. The monotony of my work routine changed 2 years ago. It all began with meeting my current husband, Taylor. I first met Taylor at a group blind date I was invited to by friends. I was not in the mood for it to begin with, and I was just drinking. But then he approached me. Would you normally talk to someone who is just sitting in the corner of the table drinking alcohol? He's an unusual person. I was thinking that, but when we started talking, surprisingly, I naturally began to smile. We exchanged contact information, and the following month, as we went out for a meal together. After dating for a year, we started living together with the prospect of marriage. While my job keeps me busy, Taylor's company is small, so there's usually some flexibility in his schedule. That's why, whenever I come home, he's always there, ready and waiting with a meal.
Welcome back, Karen. Dinner is just ready.
You made it for me. Thank you.
Karen, you're busy, so it can't be helped. It's something simple, so cut me some slack.
Yeah. I'm really happy. Thank you so much.
You're contributing a lot to our living expenses, so it's only fair.
We had quite a difference in income, you know. This is because a few years ago, my project was successful, leading to a promotion. When we roughly disclosed our incomes before moving in together, there was about a threefold difference between my salary and Taylor's. So we decided to split the rent, and I covered utilities and groceries. While most of the living expenses fell on me, I didn't mind, because Taylor took the lead in steering our life together. Unlike me, who occasionally faced sudden overtime, Taylor reliably had weekends and holidays off. So on weekdays, he cooks meals and cleans the bath. On his days off, he would thoroughly clean the entire house. I, in turn, sometimes took on household chores to give him a break. In this way, we supported each other, smoothly navigating our cohabitation. Half a year after moving in together, Taylor proposed, and we got married. With the official status of a married couple, we decided to move to a slightly larger apartment. However, a problem arose at this point. There was a significant difference between the property Taylor wanted and the one I had in mind.
Why not choose something in the middle? We're both about halfway between our workplaces.
I showed him the floor plan of a certain property, but Taylor never nodded. Instead, he boldly pointed his smartphone at me and said confidently,
So this place is definitely better. The rooms are spacious and being on a higher floor is better, right?
You misunderstood even the place I showed you? Isn't it good enough? Taylor, even if we have children someday, your choice is too spacious.
You just don't get it. You can never have too much space. Besides, Karen, you can wake up earlier, right? I'm not a morning person, so I want to live somewhere close to the office.
What's that? It's not all about your convenience.
I do most of the household chores, so it's fine, right? Karen, just focus on your work.
Despite several discussions, my husband didn't budge an inch. Instead, he aggressively pushed his opinions. Since he was unyielding, we eventually moved to the property he suggested. It was a relatively small high-rise apartment, and the room he contracted was on the 7th floor. The rent jumped several times, visibly increasing our expenses. On top of that, he said,
I want to get all new furniture and appliances.
And I ended up buying everything with my own money. Initially, as before, we split the rent, and I covered utilities and groceries. However, around 3 months after the move, my husband's attitude gradually began to change. I'm home. One day when I returned from work, there were cup ramen containers scattered in the living room. Next to them, my husband lay on the sofa, looking at his phone. There was no usual greeting of welcome home. The room was quite messy, and of course, there was no meal prepared. Hey, Taylor, are you tired? When I inquired, he maintained his posture, merely shifting his gaze towards me. A discernible sigh escaped his lips, accompanied by a visibly weary expression on his face.
Can't you see it? I'm tired, so I made such an easy meal, right?
I see. Well, then I'll have cup noodles too.
Huh? I bought that stock myself, you know.
Huh? So am I not allowed to eat it? Even though I cover all the food expenses?
Well, if that's the case, buy it yourself from the convenience store. Cup noodles are cheap with your salary, right?
The somewhat prickly tone of his words caused irritation. Realizing that continuing the conversation would only agitate me further, I opted for the light soup I had purchased as a substitute for dinner. While soaking in the bath that night, a sudden thought crossed my mind. Why did my husband suddenly adopt such an attitude? I wonder what's up with Taylor. Maybe he's really exhausted. Up until now, I had entrusted most household chores to my husband. Though I helped when I could, the burden remained substantial. Several months had passed since that incident, and rather than improving, my husband's demeanor grew colder each day. Recently, he started ignoring me even when I tried to talk to him. A new project had started a little while ago, and I found myself in the busy role of a team leader. My return home was later than usual, and I would often collapse into bed without eating dinner. Lately, my husband stopped preparing meals altogether, and we began fending for ourselves. While I felt a sense of loneliness, for someone with early mornings and late nights like me, it was somewhat easier. Then one day, after a series of overtime shifts, an unusual request came from my boss.
Can you leave on time today?
It's been a while since I've had dinner with my husband. So I went to the supermarket to buy his favorite potato au gratin and roast beef, and bought 2 tarts at a cake shop. However, no matter how long I waited, my husband didn't return. The time was already past 7 p.m. My husband always gets off work on time, so no matter how late he gets off at work, he should be home by 6 p.m. I tried sending a message, but there was no response. Time passed with no indication, not even a red receipt. What's going on with Taylor? Even after 8 p.m., there was no sign of my husband returning. The prepared dishes were nearly cold. Frustrated, I decided to call him. Surprisingly, he answered after a few rings.
What do you want?
Behind his curt words, I heard a small chuckle. A bad feeling hit me, and I immediately pressed him for an explanation. Hey, where are you right now? Are you with someone?
It doesn't matter where I am. You're probably working late too, so what's wrong with having a drink and coming home a bit late?
I'm already home today. I left work on time. I even bought dinner.
I've already eaten, so I don't need it. Bye.
Wait a sec. Despite the conversation being far from over, he unilaterally ended the call. No matter how many times I called back, he didn't respond. My head was filled with discomfort. One thing was certain. My husband was somewhere with someone. Perhaps it was just a colleague, or a friend he hadn't seen in a while. But was this woman's intuition kicking in? I could sense he was hiding something in his tone and demeanor. So I decided to open my husband's room and started searching for something. Found it, the one he always used. This is the tablet my husband usually uses. He recently purchased a new one, so this tablet is not in use right now. If he's cheating, I thought there might be evidence on this device he used until recently. I turned on and charged the tablet. Perhaps because it was replaced with a new one, but the tablet was unlocked, and I was able to open it right away. I went through the apps in it and casually opened the mail folder, where I finally found what I was looking for. I knew it. Taylor was cheating on me. There was an email history of my husband communicating with his affair partner. It seems like he used this tablet because if he exchanged messages on a smartphone app, I would find out. In the folder, there were dozens of messages left every day, and there were even cheerful couple photos sent by the person he was having an affair with. The photo folder had many pictures of the woman who was presumably his affair partner. I went back in the email exchanges, which dated back to about 4 months ago. The change in my husband's attitude began right around that time. It was a mystery why he suddenly became cold to me, but the mystery has finally been solved. Considering the timing, it's probably accurate. In that moment, anger began to shake my body uncontrollably. My hand gripping the tablet tightened as if to say, "Is this not enough?" Unbelievable. To think he was cheating just as his attitude suddenly turned sour. I decided to wait for my husband's return and confront him with the truth. After 11 p.m., my husband finally returned, and I immediately pressed him for answers. Hey, what's going on? Were you cheating?
Huh? What the hell? All of a sudden, you're saying random stuff without any evidence.
I do have evidence. Look. I presented the evidence I found on the tablet to my husband. He seemed surprised for a moment, but then started laughing.
You really don't understand anything. Don't you get why I cheated? It's because you made me lonely.
My husband looks at me like I'm an idiot, his mouth agape. He acted as if it was not his fault and that it was my fault. I forcefully confronted my husband with this. What do you mean? Are you saying it's my fault you cheated?
Yeah, that's right. I cheated because you made me feel lonely.
Huh? Are you seriously saying that?
Obviously. I don't want to hear your excuses. Just get out and stop bothering me.
My husband took out a pre-filled divorce form from his bag, slammed it on the living room table, and had a triumphant smile. In that moment, all the feelings I had built up for my husband quickly faded away. There was no love left, only a strong sense of disgust. What did he just say? I cheated because you made me feel lonely? This is ridiculous. No matter what it takes, I'll make sure he pays for this. With revenge on my mind, I turned to my husband and told him in no uncertain terms. I understand. Then I'll just take my personal belongings and leave.
Fine. Do as you please. With this, I can finally live with my girlfriend.
In return, give me just 1 week. I need to find a new place.
Whatever. I'll stay at my girlfriend's place for about a week, so make sure you're out by then.
My husband left our home with the bare minimum of belongings. I, on the other hand, also immediately began preparing. Of course, it's not just about moving. I decided to take everything in this house, meaning all the furniture and appliances I purchased, with me. On that day, I packed up some of my belongings, and the next day I contacted the moving company. After signing a contract for a monthly apartment for temporary stay, I left home. 2 days had passed since I moved into the monthly apartment. We had already submitted the divorce papers, and we were complete strangers now. On this day, as I was having dinner alone, my phone rang. I had anticipated it, and as expected, it was a call from my ex-husband. "Hello?" he exclaimed as soon as I answered.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
"What's wrong? Why are you so worked up?"
Don't play dumb. Inside the house, why is there nothing left?
Huh? Didn't I say it? I'm taking my personal belongings with me. All the furniture and appliances in that house were purchased by me, right? So, is there a problem with me taking them with me?
What? What the hell is that? Since you're the one leaving, it's normal to leave that kind of stuff behind, right? What do you think I invited her for?
He probably intended to show off in front of his girlfriend. However, the house was now practically empty. Just imagining his face at that moment made me want to burst into laughter. Despite my desperate effort to hold back laughter, Taylor continued.
Hey, you hear me? Just give it back. That's mine.
Give it back? After receiving living expenses from someone and even cheating, how can you say such a thing? I'll let you know. I'll definitely claim alimony as my rightful compensation.
What? Alimony? Why would I cheated because it's your fault.
My fault? Made you feel lonely? Don't be ridiculous. We got married knowing my job was busy. In my own way, I valued our time together as a couple. You're the one who betrayed that, no one else. When I made that accusation, Taylor stumbled over his words, realizing that continuing further was a waste of time. As if to clear away all the resentment built up until then, I unequivocally declared, "Do you understand? This situation is entirely because of your actions. I don't want to hear complaints from a man who cheats. Don't ever involve yourself with me again. You and your affair partner can go to hell together for all I care."
Karen, wait,
Without waiting for his response, I hung up and erased his contact information. It was the moment when the grudge within me finally disappeared. Afterward, I consulted a lawyer and claimed from my ex-husband and his affair partner. The affair partner apparently promptly paid me in a lump sum and then smoothly parted ways with Taylor. As a result, my husband became emotionally and mentally unstable. What befell him in the aftermath was a demand for rent payment. Oh, that high-rise apartment. Taylor insisted on putting everything in his name, saying he wanted to be a supportive husband. In other words, all bills are addressed to him. Up until now, the rent has been split 50-50, but from now on, he will have to pay all rent and utilities. He can't possibly afford the rent for that house with his limited income. Of course, given the circumstances of the divorce, he can't expect any support from his parents either. With no other options, Taylor moved to a small apartment and now seems to be making ends meet with a part-time job. On the other hand, as for me, I've successfully rented a new place near the company, and the moving process is completed. The shorter commute has given me more free time in the mornings and evenings, and I'm able to spend my time more meaningfully. Although my marriage ended in failure, I have no regrets. My career has been successful enough. I hope to continue enriching my life and strive for self-improvement every day.
I came home early to surprise my husband on his birthday, heard him with another woman. I called police, then his parents. Laughter as karma delivers.
Today is my beloved husband's birthday. I secretly took the afternoon off to pick up his favorite cake from the bakery. We've both been so busy lately that we haven't had much time together as a couple. My husband doesn't really care much about his own birthday, but I think these moments are important. After picking up the cake, I stopped by the grocery store to buy ingredients for dinner, imagining his surprised face as I happily made my way home. But the moment I opened the front door, my mind went blank. What? What's going on? There was a pair of unfamiliar pink pumps in the entryway. As I stood frozen, I heard a sweet, unfamiliar female voice overlapping my husband's voice from inside the room. I couldn't believe this was happening, but I couldn't just ignore it. I decided then and there to get revenge. Hello? I took out my phone and dialed a certain number. My name is Maggie. I'm 32 years old. I've been working at a cafe I've known since my student days, where I'm now the assistant manager. The current manager is transferring to another branch, and I've just been selected as a candidate for the manager position. It's my first time in such a role, and I'm a bit nervous, but I have a reason to give it my all: my husband. I married Victor 3 years ago. He's kind to everyone, always respects my opinions, and that's why I fell for him. He's just as kind as when we first started dating. Just the other day, when I told him I was a candidate for manager, he was thrilled.
What? That's amazing.
Well, I was acting as the manager when our manager was helping at another store, so...
Even so, it means you're recognized as capable of being a manager. That's really incredible. Managing a whole store?
Victor, you're exaggerating, but I'm really happy you say that. I'll do my best.
If you're moving up, I need to step it up too. I need to work hard so we can buy our own house soon.
Yeah, that's right. Those moments of laughing together are when I feel happiest. I was determined to work harder for his sake. One day, I came home from work to find Victor not there. Usually, I get home later than him, since he works closer to home. There was no message from him on my phone. He usually lets me know if he's working overtime. But there was nothing today. What happened to him? Did something happen? I wondered as I sent him a message, but it went unread, and time just passed. Usually he replies even when he's working late. Why not today? Could something have happened on his way home? But I would have heard from the police or hospital if there was an accident. I let my imagination run wild and became needlessly anxious. All I could do was clutch my phone and pray for his safety. Several hours later, after 11 p.m., I finally heard the front door open. I immediately got up and hurried to the entrance. Victor! Welcome home. I'm so glad you're okay. As I rushed to him, half in tears, he momentarily grimaced, but then quickly returned to his usual gentle smile and patted my head.
Sorry I'm late. Some last-minute work came up.
So it was overtime? But you usually reply. What happened? I was really worried about you.
Sorry about that. I was so busy today, I didn't even have a moment to check my phone.
It must have been tough. Why don't you go take a bath? It's ready.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Maggie,
he said, embracing me gently. That's when I noticed a faint, sweet scent coming from him. Shocked, I just stood there frozen. He went to the bath without noticing my reaction. Left alone, I walked shakily to the sofa, sat down, and tried to make sense of things. That smell was definitely perfume. But he doesn't wear perfume, and I've never even bought any. So where did that scent on him come from? Driven by concern, I decided to ask him directly. As soon as he came out of the bath, I broached the topic. Hey, Victor, sorry to bother you when you're tired, but I need to ask you something.
What's up?
Well, I felt guilty as I looked at his kind face. Should I really be asking this? Despite my internal struggle, I decided to share my doubts. When you hugged me earlier, I noticed a really nice smell on you. It was sweet. You were at the office all day, right?
Yeah. I was at the office. Maybe the smell is from the female stuff? It could have transferred to me.
But I've never noticed it before. If it was from a colleague, I would have smelled it on you before.
It was just a coincidence today. Sorry if it made you feel bad. I'll be more careful next time.
Okay. He looked somewhat stiff as he shifted his gaze to his phone. His answer wasn't what I was looking for, but I couldn't push any further. From that day, I started to feel uneasy about his behavior. His occasional overtime became almost daily, and he would return home around midnight. Plus, he started going out with colleagues on weekends. Just last weekend, he said he was going on a trip with a coworker and left early without telling me where. He didn't bring back any souvenirs or show me any photos from the trip, despite my asking. This all made me start to suspect something was off. Unable to stand it any longer, I decided to check on him at his office. I left work earlier than usual, saying I had an errand, and headed to his office. I sat on a nearby bench and waited for him to come out. After about 50 minutes, I saw him leave the office. So it wasn't overtime after all. Is he meeting someone? I discreetly followed him, but he just walked towards the station. He didn't seem to be meeting anyone there either. Am I just being paranoid? Just as I was overwhelmed with guilt, I hurried over to him. Victor!
Maggie? What are you doing here? What about work?
Sorry, Victor. I actually doubted you. Holding back tears, I explained why I was there. He listened in silence, then sighed softly.
You worry too much, Maggie. Why would I cheat you? I'm married to you.
I know. Sorry. But you've been coming home late and spending weekends away. That's why I got anxious.
Sorry for making you feel that way. There's no way I would get involved with someone else while I'm married.
Yeah, you're right. I'm really sorry for doubting you.
It's okay. Anyway, let's go home now. How about we grab dinner somewhere?
Let's do that. I was thrilled about dining out with my husband after such a long time. All my worries and negative thoughts just melted away. I was convinced he hadn't betrayed me. But at that moment, I was oblivious to where he had really been planning to go that day. 2 weeks later, it was Victor's birthday. I had told him I would be a bit late from work, but planned a birthday party. In reality, I had taken the afternoon off to prepare for it. I usually don't take many days off, so my request was easily approved. After finishing my morning duties, I left work with a spring in my step to pick up the cake I had reserved at his favorite bakery. We have both been busy lately and hadn't spent much time together. He himself didn't seem too interested in his birthday, but I thought these moments were important. After picking up the cake, I stopped by the grocery store to buy ingredients for dinner, happily picturing his surprised face as I headed home. But the moment I opened the front door, my world turned upside down. What? What's going on? There were unfamiliar pink pumps in the entryway. As I stood frozen, I heard voices from the bedroom.
Are you sure this is okay? Isn't your wife at work?
It's fine. She won't be back till tonight.
But are you sure she hasn't found out? Didn't you run into her at the station the other day?
Yeah, that was a close call. I just said I got off work early and went to eat, but sorry I couldn't see you that day.
It's okay. It would be worse if we got caught and I couldn't be with you anymore.
You're so cute when you say that.
His voice overlapped with that of the unfamiliar woman. They were in the bedroom, embracing each other. I was so shocked that I couldn't even cry. Without realizing it, I started recording their conversation on my phone, capturing the proof of their affair. I couldn't believe this was happening, but I couldn't ignore it. I had to get my revenge. This was my only chance. I took out my phone and called a certain number. Hello? Is this Lance? It's been a while. This is Maggie. I called Victor's father, Lance, not explaining the situation but asking him and his wife to come over immediately. He sensed the urgency and said he'd be right over. It's only a 15-minute drive from their house to ours. After hanging up, I called another number. Hello? Is this the police? There's a stranger in my house. Can you come right away? Yes, I called the police. After giving them my address, they said they would be right over. Waiting at the front door, the police and my in-laws arrived almost simultaneously. I followed them, walking behind everyone. We tiptoed to the bedroom door. I said, "That's the room," and the officer opened the door with force.
Police? What?
The officer was surprised to see Victor and his mistress. My in-laws were completely frozen. But my husband and the mistress were the most panicked. She tried to hide under the covers while he turned pale and looked around frantically.
Maggie? What the hell?
What do you mean? I came home and heard a stranger's voice. So I called the police.
Why did you have to call my parents too? You're crazy.
Who's crazy here? Taking advantage of the fact I wouldn't be home at night to bring your affair partner into our house?
What? Why are you home at this time? You're usually later.
It's your birthday. I thought I'd surprise you by coming home early. And this is what I find? He wanted to say something, but eventually fell silent. The officer, having heard the conversation, turned to me.
So, what should we do about this woman? We can take her to the station for questioning.
Please do. Take her right away.
Yes, ma'am.
I yanked the woman out of bed, threw her clothes at her, and handed her over to the officer. The police escorted her out. leaving my in-laws and us in the house. Victor attempted to sneak back under the covers, but his father sharply reprimanded him.
What the hell are you doing, Victor? With another woman? In your own house? Despite being married? It's not what it looks like, Dad. It's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? We saw it with our own eyes. What a fool you are. I'm sorry, okay? She was just a fling. I never intended to divorce Maggie. You think Maggie would want to stay with you after this? We no longer consider you our son. What? Dad, I'm your son. Are you going to abandon me? Shut up. You're disowned. Don't ever cross our doorstep again.
After saying this, my father-in-law sincerely apologized to me. It wasn't their fault. The blame lay solely with Victor and his mistress. Victor still didn't seem to grasp the situation. He hastily dressed, then turned to me with a forced smile.
Maggie, I'm sorry, okay? But you're the only one I love.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
Of course. I only love you. She was just a fling, so there's no need for a divorce.
Ignoring that his parents were there, I grabbed Victor by the collar and raised my voice. Cut the crap. You love me? She's just a fling? You have no idea how much you've hurt me. Finding out about your affair on your birthday? There's nothing worse. You made me feel miserable, and you're going to take full responsibility for that.
Don't be so mad. I won't see her again. I'll delete her number.
Do whatever you want. I won't see you again, and I'll delete your number too.
Wait, you're joking, right? We're married, are we?
Do you think I'm joking? I have no intention of continuing a relationship with a scumbag like you. I'd rather live alone than continue being married to you. Don't ever interfere in my life. Again. His face turned pale, and tears filled his eyes. He called my name several times, but I ignored him and left the room. Later, I packed my things and moved back to my parents' house. After settling down, I consulted a lawyer and filed for alimony from Victor and his mistress. The divorce proceedings are also underway. The recorded evidence and the fact that my in-laws witnessed the affair are working in my favor. The lawyer is skilled, so it's only a matter of time before the divorce is finalized. Surprisingly, it turned out that his mistress was also married. She and Victor are facing a lot of trouble, being sued for alimony by her husband. Their relationship soured due to the alimony issues. They argue constantly and are unlikely to end up together even after my divorce is finalized. I informed Victor's company about the divorce and its reasons, so he's lost his standing and is facing a possible transfer to regional branch. All I can say is they got what they deserved. As for me, after staying with my parents for about a month, I rented a house near my workplace. I've officially become the manager, and I'm living fulfilling days. Though it ended in divorce, I have no regrets. What matters most is how I live my life happily from here on out.